One is forced to ask this question: why is it that the American government, vis-a-vis the French government, wants the head of Traore? A lot of Africans are asking this question. What crime has Captain Ibrahim Traore, the president of Burkina Faso, did commit that the West wants its head to be in their port? This is not the first time the Western world are doing this to the continent of Africa. In 1987, that was how Thomas Sankara was taken down by the French government. As if that was not enough. In 2011, the same way the American government, in coalition with the French government, took down Muammar Gaddafi. And what are the reasons for them doing this? They believe that Muammar Gaddafi, as well as Thomas Sankara, these are a set of leaders who want Africa to be liberated from the whips and caprices of the West. The West are unsettled with the move of Muammar Gaddafi. What it is that Muammar Gaddafi wanted for Africa? Muammar Gaddafi has proposed a united African front where Africa will be able to do trades among themselves, do business among themselves, free movement of goods and services, and even persons, where we do not need visa to go to every other African country, just the way it is in Europe. Muammar Gaddafi did push for a unified currency for the states of Africa, and this unsettled the West. Muammar Gaddafi also proposed that we have a joint military, a joint air force, a joint navy, where Africa will be seen as a partner when it comes to negotiation in every continent in the world. But the West are unsettled, knowing fully well that if Africa is off from their griefs, they will definitely become poor. France is a declining nation. That is why you begin to see protests here and again. The resources they have been plundering from Africa long ago that they used to run their economy is no longer there just the way it used to be. Now, Captain Traore came on board with the same vision that Burkina Faso first. Whatever it tends to do is Burkina Faso first. And this is unsettling the West. And that is why some few days ago, we saw protests here and there in France, not in Burkina Faso, because the people in Burkina Faso, they are happy with the government of Traore. But Burkina Faso in France, being sponsored by the government of France allegedly, are clamoring for the removal of Traore. And this is not really making sense. People who are at home, they are happy that they have a leader who is really charting a course for them. In fact, every young person in Africa, we have been able to see Captain Traore as a beacon of hope. We are beginning to see Captain Traore as that singular force that Africa need to come out from the cocoon of the West. Yet the West are dissatisfied with the progress that Captain Ibrahim Traore is making in Burkina Faso. Do you believe that the US Congress, they became so jobless to the point whereby that General Michael Langley came out to say that the government of Burkina Faso is not making Burkina Faso feel the impact of governance? Wow. I said, wow. Is that true? It went further to say that the gold reserve, which is about $4 billion US, is not being used for development, but rather for the protection of Captain Traore. And I laughed. That are these people sick? Are these people okay? My question to the American government and my question to the American Senate is this: how much is the budget that was allotted to the White House last year? If my memory serves me well, it's around $114 billion US for the White House. And you are comparing that to just $4 billion US gold reserve. How does that even relate? How does that affect the American government? What is the business of American government vis-a-vis France government with Burkina Faso? What is the business with Burkina Faso? Let the people of Burkina Faso complain if they want to complain. But it's not for the American government to complain against Burkina Faso, against Captain Ibrahim Traore. Now they are beginning to sponsor protests here and there in order to unseat Traore. And why are they doing this? The question is, why are they doing this? The most pathetic thing here is like most of the leaders in Africa are not speaking in regards to this. The West constantly strive when African continent tends to go down, because once we fight, whenever we are fighting, they are making profit from when we are fighting. There are countries in Africa that are worse off in terms of corruption, and they claim to have democratic rule in such country. For example, Cameroon, for example, Biya has been there God knows when. A man of almost 90 who cannot walk by himself alone. West do not call for him to leave because it's a puppet and stooge to the West. But the good news here is, if the entire African continent tend to do that, a country in Africa will stand still, and that is South Africa. That was why the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighter led by Julius Malema, they came out to make a remarkable statement. This was the statement that was released by the EFF. The EFF rejects this baseless claim as a strategic move to undermine a leader who has expelled French troops and ended exploitative mining contracts. prioritize self-reliance under Traore leadership, Burkina Faso has begun nationalizing its gold sector. This is part of the reason why the Western world, they are angry, because France know that they don't want to come out wholeheartedly to attack Burkina Faso because the world will be angry at them. General Captain Michael Lagley is trying to say that there is no development in Burkina Faso, that Burkina Faso is standstill, that people of Burkina Faso are suffering. But the truth is it that there is no development in Burkina Faso, or the US government and the French government are just being delusional? But before I move further, let me take you through some of the projects and some of the achievements of Traore. Number one, the GDP of Burkina Faso has risen from 18.8 billion to 22.1 billion. Secondly, rejected loan from IMF, World Bank, and the American government. And this is not really sitting down with the Western world. Number three, President Traore reduced the salaries of ministers and parliamentarians by 30% and invariably increased the salary of civil servants by 50%. What an amazing move by a president. No president in Africa has been able to do that. Number four, all local debt owed by Burkina Faso has been paid off by Captain Traore. Number five, Traore was able to build 2 tomato processing plants, the first ever in the history of Burkina Faso. So 2 tomato plants has been built by Burkina Faso, the first in the history of Burkina Faso. Number 6, he established a state-of-the-art gold local processing facility. So now, before now, the gold is extracted from Burkina Faso, taken to France and America for processing. But now, golds are not taken away from Burkina Faso. Gold are extracted from Burkina Faso and being processed as well in Burkina Faso. That's an amazing one. Traore has been able to build the second cotton processing factory in Burkina Faso. This is the set man they say is not working. I don't know what they want him to do. He also established a sovereign wealth to assist local cotton farmer. So local cotton farmer has been assisted by a special fund by the president of Burkina Faso. Traore also banned the wearing of British legal wigs and gown in local courts and introduced a traditional Burkinabe attire. So all those foreign wigs our lawyers used to put on in Africa, those are just the culture of the West. It's not the culture of Africa. So each time our lawyers and our judges put that, is a symbol of colonialism, and that has been utterly banned in Burkina Faso, which is a very good move. Agriculture has been prioritized by the government of Ibrahim Traore. Over 400 tractors have been procured, over 240 tillers have been provided, and a host of other equipment in order to aid and boost agricultural production in Burkina Faso. Not only that alone, tomato production has increased in Burkina Faso from 315 metric tons in 2022 to 360 metric tons in 2024. Millet production rose from 970,000 metric tons in 2022 to 1.1 billion metric tons in 2024. Rice production also has increased tremendously in Burkina Faso from 280,000 metric tons in 2022 to 322 million metric tons in 2024. Also banned French military operation in Burkina Faso. He banned French media in Burkina Faso. He also expelled French troops from Burkina Faso. His government is constructing new roads, widening existing ones, and also upgrading gravel roads in all of Burkina Faso. He is building a new airport in Burkina Faso. Not that alone, Burkina Faso is the only country in Africa where you can go to school from primary through to the university free of charge. The only country in the world that does that, I think, is that of Fidel Castro, which is Cuba. It's only Cuba that is doing that. Not even the so great America or the great France has the tenacity and the balls to do that to its citizens. So you are saying Ibrahim Traore is not working. What else do the West want Ibrahim Traore to do? Traore has been a beacon of hope. He has been a center of discussion in all of the world. If the West are saying the contrary, that means the West do not love progress. The West do not want to see African strife. The West do not want to see African growth. African youth will never accept this kind of treatment, never again. What you did to Muammar Gaddafi must never be repeated in the soil of Africa, because the African youth, we are going to stand by, we are going to stand with, and we are going to defend Captain Ibrahim Traore. The truth remains that Africans are not going to give in to this cheap blackmail by the American government and the French government. Enough of this shenanigans. Africa is come to stay, and Africa has given birth to a new leader who is going to chart a new course for the continent of Africa. I say Viva Africa, but my appeal once again to Traore is ensure you have a Russian military base or a Chinese military base in Burkina Faso. With that, those renegades call themselves the West will not have the balls to come to your country to come and destroy Burkina Faso. What can Ibrahim Traore do in order to escape from the claw of the Western vampires? Well, guys, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to comment.